Welcome back to GoDoBe EmPowerMe. I'm Joe Guskowski, your host, your guide, and your coach throughout this journey. In the last module, we continued building on our understanding of the second foundation, that of belief. And we did this by looking at the source of our beliefs. The key takeaway from this previous session was that there are some very powerful factors that influence our beliefs and our belief systems, starting right from the moment that we're born all the way up to this moment. And we also realized that some of those factors or forces may not always have our best interest at heart. Today, we're going to go even deeper into the second foundation by exploring the basis, the rationale, and the reasons why we tend to accept what we believe as true. Knowing this will help make it easier for us to change our beliefs whenever we discover that maybe they are not true. If something is no longer valid, no longer relevant for us, then we're going to need to change it, and today's session is going to help us do that. So let's get started. What are those things that form the supports for our beliefs and our belief systems? I mean, why do we tend to accept our beliefs as if they're always true, correct, or justified? Now, all human beings, including you and I, we tend to act or we tend to behave in a fashion that's consistent with what we believe to be true. We already talked about that in the last session. For example, if we believe that stealing is wrong, then we typically don't steal. Whatever we believe, we tend to act according to that belief, whatever it is. All right, let's start to take a hard look at those supports, the reasons why we tend to believe whatever it is that we believe. Some of the most common supports to our belief systems include the following: personal experience, evidence, and faith. Let's start to break those down and explore them individually. Let's start with the experience component. It's the idea that I know something is true because I saw it happen, or I heard it with my own ears, or I felt it with my own hand or heart. I know the shirt I'm wearing is a particular color because I can see it here and now. Almost everything that we believe to be true in the world around us is because we personally or directly experience it. And once we learn something, we tend to believe that it is true, correct, or valid. The other two types of experience come from either secondhand or third-hand experience. Secondhand experience is when we believe something to be true because someone that we know and that we trust has experienced it directly, and they shared their experience with us. This is a really simple idea. I have a friend who I like and who I trust, and she told me that ABC is true. Now, if ABC or her claim is not too extreme, then because I trust this friend and because I like this friend, then I give them the benefit of the doubt and I will believe what she tells me. Third-hand experience is a little different. This is when someone I trust tells me about an experience that somebody they know has had or that they've heard about from another. Sort of like a grapevine, a message or a story that's told over time. Of these three types of experience, the most reliable, of course, most trustworthy is going to be first-hand experience. But remember, none of these are definitively true in every single case. Just because I saw a ghost one night somewhere in the dark, it doesn't mean that ghosts are real. It just means that I saw something I can't otherwise explain. Now, the next reason that supports our beliefs or why we believe something to be true is because we have some form of evidence to support it. This is typically one of the strongest reasons for a belief to be considered true or valid. However, evidence or proof only works if certain conditions are met. First, it is something that is testable. That means that we can study it. It can be checked or it can be examined independently. Next, that proof must be measurable in some way, that we can count it, we can weigh it, we can quantify it, we can judge it and measure it in some way. Then it must also be repeatable. This means that if we did the same test later, or if someone else did the same test later, that whatever the results are, they would be exactly the same as when I did it, or you did it, or the first person that did it. Next is the idea that evidence is irrefutable. This means that it's impossible to deny it or to disprove it, that there is no conflicting or contrary evidence out there at all. The final constraint for our idea of evidence or proof is that it must be objective. This means that the proof must be unbiased, impartial, and certainly not dependent on one point of view. If all of these conditions that we just noted are met, then we have a legitimate reason to believe something is true because we have evidence. The final support for belief is this idea of faith. That is, that I believe something is true because I have faith that it is true. Now, when I say I have faith in something, it simply means that we trust, that we have confidence in it, or we believe it to be true, even though we don't have any direct evidence, as we described and noted earlier, to support it. And because we have faith, we continue to believe whatever it is. Now, faith typically stems from various scenarios. First, faith is something we're taught to believe or to believe in, maybe by our parents, by our religious inclinations, or by other people or other institutions that we trust. The second sort of faith, I'll refer to this as intuitive faith. It's not someone else giving me this idea of faith or trying to instill this faith in me. It doesn't come from there. Intuitive means it comes from me. The idea here is that sometimes we believe something to be true because we just strongly feel that it is true. It's like a voice calling us from somewhere deep down inside. And even though we don't have evidence, this inner resonance is so powerful, so overwhelming, that we know that what we feel, what we sense is true or real, regardless of what it is. Now, there are a few other reasons why we tend to believe that our beliefs are true. Let's look at a couple more here. First is the idea that a belief is true because it's a collective belief. In other words, we believe it. The we believe, or this collective belief, assumes that the beliefs of the group or the groups to which I belong are true because the group believes in it. Another reason, or justification, or support for a belief is that it's true because I really want to believe it. In other words, it's in my best interest to believe it. Here, the desire to believe something to be true is strong because believing it, or believing in it, or even wanting it to be true, puts me in a positive, favorable, or desirable place. But again here, remember that just because I want to believe that something is true, or that I wish for it, or hope for it, or desire for it to be true, it doesn't actually mean that it is true. The reason why it's important for us to understand the nature and supports that enable our beliefs is because what we believe affects the actions that we take and those actions that we do not take. And once we recognize this, that maybe what we believe might not be true, then just maybe we might be able to see that the reason we are not happy, healthy, or successful is because the thoughts we have about it. This realization gives us power, because if we can change the underlying belief, then maybe we can make a new choice or take a new action instead of going in the direction that we're currently going. So now the next logical question for us is, so what do I do if I discover that I have a belief that is not true, correct, or valid? How do I change it? Here's the really tricky thing about beliefs. Remember how I mentioned earlier that human beings are creatures of habit? Well, the same thing is true about our beliefs. Even when we discover or we're given conclusive evidence that clearly shows that what we believe might be wrong, for most of us, we still don't or won't change that belief. But that doesn't mean that it can't be changed or we can't change it. It can be changed, and we can reset it for anyone or any of us to actually do this, to change our beliefs so that we can make some meaningful, lasting changes in our world. We first need to explore how our brain works. We don't understand this process, then changing any belief that we have is going to be really, really difficult. And exploring our minds is exactly what we're going to do when we jump into the next session. In fact, I'm going to prove to you that maybe you can't or shouldn't always just trust what your brain tells you. So here's our takeaway assignment for today. I want us to reflect on a controversial belief that we have. Now, once you pick your belief, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be that we believe the other political party is bad or evil or really crooked, or that maybe ghosts really do exist, or that the earth is flat, or that there is a conspiracy to rule the world out there, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter whatever that belief is. As long as it's something that we strongly feel about, we have a belief in it, then I want us to ask a question to ourselves. Why do we believe that it is true? What is the validation for that belief? Do I believe it's true because it's based on my past experiences? Or because I have concrete evidence to support it? Or Maybe because I have faith in it, maybe because I want to believe it, or maybe because most of my friends or the people I hang out with or my group believes it, or something else. This simple question of exploring why I might believe something to be true should start to give us a better sense as to what might be supporting some of our own existing beliefs. Remember, we're not making any judgments here. We're not saying I'm good or bad for believing a particular thing. That's irrelevant. Instead, we're simply trying to understand what currently supports or might support some of our belief systems. Our belief system is really a powerful enabler and disabler. Let's make sure that we're using it in the right way, in a way that supports us rather than a way that works against us. This brings us to our final thought for today. This one is from St. Augustine, theologian and philosopher who lived around 400 AD. He said, "Faith is to believe what we do not see. The reward of faith is to see what we believe." Think about that one for a moment. Until I see you next time, have an absolutely amazing day. I'll see you very, very soon.